By a show of hands, how many of you refill your gas tank when it's halfway empty? Come on, you refill. Yeah, you my people. You my people. I knew I loved you in the foyer. Come on. You are halfway, fill up the tank people. Come on, online, where are you at? How many of you are like somebody else we know, and they wait till the gas light comes on before even thinking about needing petroleum? Come on, I don't understand you. Like, I love you, but come on, I'm not even sure we can share the same heaven together. Why do you live on the edge? Why do you live so dangerously? Ain't nobody got time for that. What about this one? What about this one? How many of you live beyond the gas light coming on, and you wait for the moment of intense prayer? You know what I'm talking about? Lord, I promise if you just let me get there, I'll never do it again. Lord, just get me there. You're turning off the radio and the air conditioning like any of that helps. You're just like, kids, be quiet in the back. I'm trying to save gas. And you're just, come on, be honest. How many of you there? Yeah. I've only ran out of gas one time in my life, and I can explain. The gas gauge on my dashboard was broken, so what I would do was I would fill up my tank, and then I would track my miles. But then on a stormy night, almost at midnight, with a 3-month-year-old at home, I find myself on the side of the road. I ran out of gas. And it didn't make sense, because to my gas journal in my car, I had more miles to spare. I had more miles. And that's when I discovered not all miles are created equal. There are some miles that will drain your fuel quicker than others. In life, there are miles, there are adventures, there's directions, there are journeys that will drain you quicker than other seasons. And for many of you at this start of a new year, you're asking yourself, I thought I had more miles. I thought I had more runway. I thought I had more real estate. I thought I had more time. I thought I had greater strength. So why do I feel so depleted and empty on the inside? Like, this doesn't make sense. This argument should not bother me the way it has. This disagreement should not bother me to the level in which I'm feeling it right now. The emotional chaos, the unrest, the turmoil at work or with my kids, it's a small molehill. I can admit that. So why do I feel a mountain of emotion stemming from something so tiny? I thought I had greater strength than this, greater focus than this, greater determination than this. I thought I had more miles up ahead, but then why do I feel so drained? It could be because you've misread your gauges, or your gauges are broken and you don't even know it. Let me give you 6 warning signs that you're emotionally running on empty. Maybe you want to take a photo of this for further use later on in thought practice. The persistent negative emotions. This is where you just can't shake it off. I just can't shake off the sadness. I just can't shake off the anger and the fear and the resentment. What about avoidance? This is where you start avoiding people or situations. We would say it like this. You know, I just can't. I just can't with them right now. If I hear their tone of voice, I just can't. I just can't talk to them right now. This is why God, in his love and his sovereignty for you, created the genius of caller ID. Come on, how many people are like, nope, not today, devil, not today. Avoidance, mood swings. This is unpredictable shifts in mood. Right? Your highs are really high, and then the lows are really low, but nobody really knows what they're going to get. You're an emotional roller coaster. Self-criticism. Notice there's a difference between self-criticism and self-critique. Self-critique says there's a me that can get better. I want to be better, get better, do better, know better. Criticism is an unfair judgment or attack upon yourself, leaving you feel, well, I'm just unworthy. Well, I don't deserve this. Overreacting. This is what I just described, where your responses are out of proportion to the situation. Or overexertion. This is where you're just constantly busy. You're just constantly going. And this morning, what I want to do is explore something we often overlook in our lives, especially in the church world, and that is, how do we stay rooted, grounded, regulated emotionally? We are in week 2 of the series called Radicalis. Remember, it comes from the Latin word to remain rooted. If you want good, healthy fruit, you have to be rooted in good, healthy soil. How do we remain rooted in good soil? Let's look at Jesus. In John chapter 11, we find the story of Jesus getting emotional. And for the sake of time, I'll break the passage into 2 shorter readings. You can read the full chapter, John chapter 11, on your own tonight. If you're ready, say, let's go. Now a certain man was ill. Matter of fact, he was really ill. He was dying. His name was Lazarus, and he was from the city of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. The sister sent to him, being Jesus, Lord, he whom you love is ill. Jesus, your friend is dying. You need to come quickly. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus so much that when he heard that Lazarus was dying, he stayed where he was 2 days longer. Now when Jesus came, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now watch what the gospel writer wants us to know. He adds in this important detail. Bethany was near Jerusalem. Where Jesus was and where Lazarus was only about 2 miles off. The distance between the 2 individuals was 2 miles. And it took Jesus 2 days. By the way, that's how I run a marathon right there. It's like, Pastor, you are taking forever. I don't want to outpace my Savior and my Lord. I'll take my time. Thank you very much. It took him 2 days to go 2 miles. Martha and Mary, Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off, and many of the Jews beat Jesus to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Jesus said to her, I'm the resurrection and the life. Whomever believes in me, though he's dead, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Verse 32, now when the sister Mary heard that Jesus was back in town, she went up to him and said the same thing her sister said, which means that they were both talking about it back in the living room just moments before. She said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in his spirit. In the original language, it said twice, he's deeply moved in his spirit and greatly troubled. Jesus wept. In the ancient world, the Romans, who would pride themselves on authority and machoism, and this is what a man looks like, and this is how a man defends his honor, and this is how a man is a valiant warrior, they would have used this very text for what we would call today a mockery text. They would use this to make fun of Christians. Like, for real? For real, bro? Your God cries? That's the God you serve? He cries? To which we would say, yeah, he does. But don't laugh too hard, because he also resurrects the dead. And while we're quick to get to the end of John chapter 11, where Jesus raises Lazarus from the grave, I don't want to look at the miracle of the resurrection. I want to look at the miracle of emotional regulation. How does Jesus regulate and root his emotions so he's not all over the place? Have you ever found yourself in an environment, maybe you're watching your favorite news outlet, maybe it's a political season, maybe it's a conversation, maybe it's social media, maybe it's YouTube, in which upon entering into that atmosphere, you are actually at peace. You actually had rest, like you're just in a good mood. It's not like you're elated, but you're not depressed. You're like, yeah, I'm good. But after watching the conspiracy theories on the Joe Rogan podcast, or after watching the political debates, or after watching the comment section on Facebook, something external out there became internal in here. Something infected or influenced your emotions. I was good until they got involved. I was good until I came home. I was going to come home from a busy day at work. I was going to work out. I was going to have dinner, and then I was going to rest and relax. But as soon as I walk in the door, everybody just starts asking me, and they need me, and they're in a bad mood. Now I don't feel like doing nothing. Everybody? Anybody ever been there before? Just me? All right, well, this is therapeutic for me anyway. What are we doing? We're allowing external factors to influence our internal temperature. There's a word for that, irascibility. Irascibility is the inability to regulate your own emotions apart from the emotions of others. So this is the mom that was in a good mood, but after the conversation with her teenage daughter is now in a bad mood herself. This is the dad who comes home and now he's unhappy with something, so now it's ruined his entire evening. This is the inability to regulate one's own emotions apart from the emotions externally, irascibility. Now, while the capacity to connect with other people through empathy is a good thing, is a God thing, if it's not regulated carefully and intentionally, you will become overwhelmed. Think of it this way. Once you begin to embody everyone else's emotions, your soul becomes grand central station for everybody else's trains of emotions. And all their weird passengers get off their train and into your spirit. That's why some people can do a drive-by emotional dump. They just come to you, they vent all their frustration on you, they leave in a better mood because they unloaded their passengers, but now you're overcrowded. And now their inability to regulate their emotions has now somehow become your responsibility. We don't see this in the life of Jesus. What we see in Jesus is that he is not only offering shalom, ultimate peace, fulfilled peace to people, but he is shalom himself. Because you cannot give away what you do not possess yourself. And you cannot give away peace if you are not a person of peace. It's possible for Christians to empathize deeply and authentically with people, but not embody their emotional unhealth. There comes a time where it's okay to allow other people to experience their strong emotions, but still see you like Jesus down below deck sleeping while the storm is raging. Why did they go to Jesus? Because they saw he wasn't freaked out by the very thing they were stressed about. We can empathize without embodying other people's emotions. How did Jesus regulate his own emotions? If you're ready, say, I'm ready. Number one is this. Let me state the obvious. It's an obvious foundation, but we need a foundation to build a house. Number one, Jesus allows emotions. I don't know who needs to hear that, but Jesus allows emotions. Sometimes in the circles of faith, in the capital C church, we're taught that faith denies emotions. Oh, I don't even want to think about it. I don't even want to admit it. I don't even want to say it because I got faith that God's going to come through. Yeah, God's going to come through, but it doesn't deny strong, real emotions. I'll never forget. It was my first year of marriage. Jessica and I had our very first real first-year marriage argument. Anybody else know what I'm talking about? You know, like you're arguing over silly stuff. Now, because I'm the one talking right now and have the microphone, this is my side of the story, okay? And the way I remember it happening was she started it and she overreacted. It's my story. And because I was just weeks out of seminary, weeks out of Bible college, I had taken all the marriage classes. I've taken all the counseling classes. I took all the pastoral study classes, and I made pretty good grades in them as well. I knew what to do in this moment to de-escalate the tension in the argument. I knew what to do. I looked at her and said, "You need a chill pill. That's what you need right there." Let me tell some fiance, telling your spouse they need to chill out doesn't in fact help them chill out. To all the parents, telling your kids to calm down does nothing to help them emotionally regulate their emotions. Matter of fact, It does the opposite. But Jesus allows emotions. Here's what I find fascinating. Both the sisters had the same critique of Jesus, verbatim. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. If there's any moment where it would have been appropriate for Jesus to lay down the theological smackdown, it would have been right here. Mary, Martha, do you smell what the rock is cooking? I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. Why are you thinking like that? Why do you? No, he didn't. Matter of fact, to Martha, he encourages her faith. To Mary, he comforts her heart, but he never course-corrected their emotions. Because emotions are not the ultimate issue, are they? It's how we manage the emotions. The Bible says that we were created in the image and in the likeness of God himself. What do we know about God? God has emotions. God feels deeply about matters. So whenever we feel anger, frustration, joy, encouragement, elation, fatigue, all these emotions are simply a mirror to the reality that we were created in the image of God with an emotional capacity to care and resonate deeply on a subject. Emotions aren't the issue. Even anger. Look at anger. The book of James says, yeah, go ahead and be angry. You're do well to be angry. Just sin not in your anger. Don't walk into a room and blow it up. Know the difference between being angry at a moral, ethical issue of injustice that breaks the heart of God and a personal preference. Don't lose it over here. When this will fade, this remains. Strong emotions aren't the issue. It's our ability or inability to manage them. So number one, Jesus allows emotions, but secondly, Jesus controlled his emotions. It's interesting that when Jesus heard that Lazarus was sick and dying, he waited 2 more days. He didn't rush off and fix the problem immediately. He waited 2 days. And then he took 2 more days to go 2 miles. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a pet peeve. How many of you would admit you have way too many pet peeves? How many of you are like me, you try to kill a pet a year? You know what I'm talking about? Like, hey, this looks like Noah's Ark up in here. I got to kill some of these pet peeves. They're bad. But one of my pet peeves are people who show up late and pretend like they're on time. Oh, man, don't come in here with that kind of dragon energy trying to gaslight me. I know you're late. I ain't stupid. I'll never forget, I had this intern one year, was interning in the ministry realm with me, and on the first day, he was about 30 minutes late, and on the second day, he was another 30 minutes late, but this time he came in with a Dunkin' Donuts coffee. I said, hey, brother, let's talk for a second. If you're late, don't come in holding a cup of coffee. It speaks to the fact that your personal want was more important than honoring everybody else's time. You push back all my agendas and meetings for the rest of the day just so you could have some mediocre coffee. That's dishonoring. It's disrespectful. That's not leadership. Don't treat people that way. So I want to help Jesus out a little bit. If I could be his PR agent just for a minute. Jesus, if you're going to show up 4 days late to a funeral, you can't just be walking in there hobnobbing with Mary and Martha. You got to come in running. You got to come in. Oh, whew. Mary, Martha, I'm sorry, but you would not believe the traffic in Bethlehem. Oh, Bethany, man, there was a massive donkey pileup, sandals everywhere. It was crazy. Take some water, splash it on your face. Where is he? Oh, I'm too late. Oh, in myself, what have I done? And now, Jesus, you don't just walk in 4 days late. But what's he doing? Jesus has this way of refusing to allow other people's emotional state or states to become his direction for his own composure. He never allowed their emotions to dictate his composure, his sense of sensibility, his timing. So let me share a hard truth. Somebody said after the first service, Pastor, I don't like this. And, to be honest, I don't either, but I don't sit on God's counsel. I'm just a mailman. And be open to being bothered by the Bible. Let me share a hard truth. Jesus doesn't always rush to fix everyone's emotions immediately. But don't we try to do that? The reason why it bothers us that he doesn't rush to fix our emotions immediately is because we are prone to fix people's emotions very quickly. For example, your kid is crying, here's my phone to cheer them up. They're exhausted, they want candy, here's candy. They keep asking, oh, I'm so sick of hearing it, just give them what they want. We know that in the parental sense, but what about adults? You're stressed, here's something to take the edge off. You're not sexually satisfied, well, here is a dopamine release of a visual stimulation of something. Quick fixes give us shallow satisfaction without helping us regulate deeper emotions. So remember the story of Thomas after Jesus' resurrection from the grave? All the disciples saw Jesus alive and well and healthy after spending 3 days himself in the grave, dead. All but Thomas. The disciples tell Thomas, we saw Jesus. He's alive. Thomas said, well, I didn't see him, so I'm not going to believe it till I see it. At that moment, one would think Jesus would walk through the walls. How do you like me now? But he doesn't. The text says he waited an entire week before showing up to Thomas. An entire week. And this time, when he does show up, he did walk through a wall with his resurrected body. The capacity was always there. The miraculous was always there. The wonder was always there. So why did he wait an entire week before showing one of his beloved disciples, look, it's me in the flesh. I'm real. I'm alive. It's not because he was working up the courage. He was working up the courage in Thomas. He was building the strength and the resolve of Thomas. Hey, Thomas, for what I have planned for you from this moment after, you're going to have to wrestle with the tension of deep emotion. Thomas, you're going to have to figure out how to regulate your faith and your emotions. Because you cannot be spiritually mature and emotionally immature all at the same time. I'm going to help the man in you develop. Otherwise, we're stuck taking theological steroids where we have this projected strength and confidence in God, but because we don't have the experience wrestling through matters with him, our actual strength does not mimic our projected size. We look bigger and better than we really are. And Jesus says, I love you too much to leave you weak. I'm not going to always fix everything in your life quickly. But in the tension of waiting, I'm developing your strength and your emotions and your resolve. Jesus allows emotions. Jesus controlled his emotions. You know, the Bible says it is to the glory of God to conceal, that means hide, a matter. But it is to the glory of a king to search it out. God likes to hide strength, confidence, and his revelation inside our emotions so that the king in you will discover it. Don't we do this as a culture, at least in the Christian culture? Don't we like to avoid disappointment or discouragement? We like to dance around grief. If God doesn't answer a prayer quickly, we like to dance around the issue. We like to dance around our emotions. How are you, brother? God is good. Well, I know God's good, but how are you? I was talking about you right now, not God. He's good, but how about you? We like to dance around grief. I'll never forget, it was one of the very first funerals that I ever officiated as a pastor. I didn't know the individual. I was I was pastoring a family in our church, and they knew of him. So this was like 3 people removed. But when I sat down to talk to the widow on how she would like the funeral arrangements to be made, she said, hey, Pastor, he's with Jesus. I know where he's at. Let's not have a funeral. Let's have a celebration of life. I want humor. I want funny stories. I want joy and happiness and celebration. And so I did my best to honor her request. In hindsight, it was probably an overkill. It was to the point where we were almost happy that he was gone. You know, we're like, nah, 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 hey, 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 goodbye, Joe. And it was ridiculous. And afterwards, this retired pastor comes up to me, and he was so kind. He really was. And he was so gracious. He was very complimentary of the atmosphere of joy and elation, and also my message. But then he says, but Pastor, if I could offer you some encouragement, which is code word for I'm about to verbally spank you, is what it was. And Pastor, if I could just offer you some encouragement. Don't rush people out of their grief. Let them find Jesus in their despair. Sometimes as Christians, we don't know how to balance the art of I have faith in the fact that Jesus is the resurrection and the life, and also grieving over significant issues all at the same time. Here's what I find fascinating. The Bible says Jesus wept while he was on his way to resurrect his friend. He's crying over the very thing that he's about to fix. This would be like watching your favorite sports team. You know for a fact that they won. You're watching a playback video of it, but you're crying because currently they're down by 7. I don't know what they're gonna do. And bro, you know they're gonna win. You saw the end result. Jesus is weeping while he's on his way to fix the problem. Here's the principle. Future hope, or our hope in heaven, our hope in Jesus, our hope in his ultimate healing, our hope in his sovereignty, our hope for the future is not emotional anesthesia for today. God's okay for us carrying both truths at the same time. I can believe in Jesus. He is the matchless, unique Son of God. I can believe in the great resurrection of the saints. I can believe in the great family reunion in which we all sit together in one accord. Past family members and past friends who have passed away from this life, but in this life they gave their life to Jesus. I know we will be together again. And at the same time, I can grieve today, for they are no longer with us. One does not rob the other. Jesus weeps as he walks to fix the problem. Faith is not a denial of emotions. Faith is an invitation for God to sit with you while you process the emotion. So it brings me to number 3. How do we become people? Not of irascibility, but emotional responsibility. We recognize Jesus allows emotions, Jesus controlled his emotions, and then thirdly, Jesus regulated his emotions. Controlled his emotions speaks to the fact that he did not allow his emotions to influence his behavior. He had self-control. Regulated emotions means that Jesus knew how to process what he was feeling from a healthy perspective. So it's not just about being in self-control, because then you can just suppress everything. You need to know how to process your emotions so you know how to mature from them. Let me close with this thought. We have an entire book in the Bible that is built on the foundation of emotions, deep emotions, not fickle, whimsical, deep anguish. The book is called Lamentations. Lamentations is where we get the word lamenting. The entire book is lamenting strong emotions. It's the only book in the Bible that is all built upon emotions. Watch this. It's also the most organized and structured book in the Bible. So when Paul says in the New Testament, we don't weep like people in the world weeps, he's not saying we don't weep and they do. He's saying we don't weep aimlessly and out of control, wandering through the woods of despair. We grieve, but we grieve in order. We grieve structured. We grieve building. Let me show you what that looks like. Number one, just following the structure of Lamentations chapter 1 all the way to Lamentations chapter 5. We determine the emotion. This is where you're honest about what you feel and why you feel it. You determine the emotion. I'm angry. I'm upset. I feel disrespected. I feel overlooked. I feel marginalized. I feel taken advantage of. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. We determine the emotion. We understand the why behind the emotion, what's triggering it. Secondly, we discover the theology. Theos meaning God, ology is the study of God. So it's a study of God in your emotions. Number one, we determine the emotion, then we discover the theology. That is to say, what does God say about this emotion that I'm currently feeling? And then number three, we develop maturity from it. What am I learning about myself and about God in this emotion, in this trigger? Am I trying to get something from other people that only God can provide? If so, I'll live my life angry and out of control, looking to be fulfilled by something or someone that they were never authorized to give. We determine the emotion, we discover the theology, and then we develop maturity from it. And you'll find in the course of this process that you can say what the writer of Lamentations said: the steadfast, unmovable, unshakable, uncontainable, faithful love of the Lord never ceases. He never runs out of gas on the highway of life. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. And then he gets all caught up and he says, great is your faithfulness. And so this past Christmas, not like 10 years ago, I wish it was, because this is embarrassing to even talk about, to be honest. I wish it was 10 years ago, so I could say back in my immature days. But this was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. It's Christmas. You know, the kids were home a lot. You know, like bring back year-round school. And they were home a lot. And there was a lot of, my cell phone was blowing up. There was a lot of issues in people. And to be honest, I was just trying to be what I shouldn't have been. I was trying to be too many things to all people. And my emotional tank was empty, and I didn't realize I was misreading the gauge of my emotional fuel. And Cade, he's my 8-year-old boy, and he did something that needed to be corrected. It really did, but not at the level in which I corrected him. So he did something, and then I just lashed out. Like the entire atmosphere shifted in that moment. And he ran off crying. I was frustrated, but I'm frustrated with him, but then I'm also frustrated with myself. I'm like, dang it, Derick, I thought we were better than this. I thought we developed from this. I thought we moved on from this. Let me tell you something, fellas. There's nothing more humiliating than talking to an 8-year-old knowing that you just acted the same age. So I said, hey, buddy, come here a second. Oh, man. Hey, Kay, Daddy needs to talk to you real fast. Man, I'm sorry, bud. Daddy took it too far. I yelled, and I shouldn't have yelled. I should have been more in control. That's embarrassing. I shouldn't have acted like that. To be honest, bud, I'm not even mad at you. I was thinking about something else, and you just came into the world at the wrong time. That's not your fault. Would you forgive me? Like you're being a boy and I'm acting like one. My goodness. I'm sorry, buddy. Listen, you only do that so many times before you will really get control of your behavior. Because you don't have to keep... Hey, fellas, as an aside, not only did my son need to hear his dad apologize, he needed to see what responsibility looks like and how it's modeled. Hey, don't bully your kids. Don't gaslight your kids. Show them what responsibility of emotional maturity looks like. Let them develop. How many times are we carrying emotional wounds from our parents? Why? Because we never saw them take responsibility for the chaos and the storms they cause in our atmosphere. God has called us to be chain breakers. We redeem legacies. But we don't just redeem legacies, we have to work for them and towards them. We determine the emotion. In that moment, I felt anger because I felt disrespected. I felt like he was doing it on purpose. Okay, that is the emotion, and that was the trigger. But discover the theology. What does God say about anger? He says, be angry, but sin not. So my frustration with his activity was validated, but my response unvalidated the very principle I was trying to instill in him. You can't do that. Because while I'm telling him he can't do that, God's telling me, but you can't do that. We discover the theology. Where is God in this emotion? And then we develop maturity from it. Here's what I'm learning about myself. Emotional gas tanks. Here's what God says about to be replenished. Here's what God says about getting back on the highway of life. Oh, I just can't get over what I've done back then. Listen, we all have seasons, don't we? Sometimes we just need to pull over in the 7-Eleven of God's presence, refill our tank, and get back on the highway. God's more concerned about where you're going than where you've been. But let's admit it, we've all been to some places. And that is why we need to return back to the cross and find that his mercy and his goodness still covers even that. But the cleaning agent of God's grace isn't just about forgiveness of our sin. It's about giving us the strength to do better next time. It's forgiveness and it's power. It's mercy and it's strength. For he who began a good work in you, he's faithful to see it on to the day of completion. You look good rooted.